the next hour, there are three things that I'm going to make a promise to you. That one is you're going to become aware of your mind. The mind is really important. It's really powerful. And you're going to discover if it is helping you to create the joyful life that you want and a life that you're going to be proud of. And then number two, we are going to learn techniques and create new habits that will reinforce this joy and help you to create that life that you want. And then number three, we're going to give you the opportunity to join a small group of people who want to personally develop in order to have a greater influence with helping others, because helping others is really what life is actually about. I would also, just bear with me for a moment. I'm going to see if I can get the chat on my screen. And I can't. Okay. I'd like this to be quite interactive. So I'm not fully sure how to do that. I see that somebody has raised their hand already, but my screen just isn't allowing me to have the chat on the side. Do you know, Sam, how I can get the chat on the side of the screen? Oh, I've got a feeling I'm on my own. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, you can.
Oh, you can, right? Okay. It's just everything went really quiet. Okay, sorry. As long as I know you can hear me, that's great. Okay, okay. So yeah, we can do questions at the end. So please keep your hand raised if you've got questions, and then we can come on to you. I'm sure you'll have many more. I also hope that you've got pen and paper handy so that you can write down questions as we go. And then at the end, you can share with me what you've learned and how I've been able to help and how I can continue to help you. Okay, so are you excited? I hope so. I really wish we were in a big room together and we could all share each other's energy, but let's see if we can generate that energy in the chat box and through questions later. Okay, get your pens and paper ready, because are you tired of trying to figure your life out on your own? It gets exhausting sometimes, you know. It's okay to keep questioning your beliefs, but there's certain information that you also need to know if you want to take ownership of your life again. You know, like the media and other people's expectations, they take our life away from us. So we want to take ownership of our lives. And would you like once and for all to see some positive change in your life? You know, instead of one step forward, two steps back. And would you like to be with like-minded people who are also creating happiness and joy and that life of abundance, which we are all entitled to? You know, we are all given this wonderful thing called life, but somewhere along the way, we seem to forget how to do it. So I'm Janet Jones. I'm known as the Happiness Millionaire. And a long time ago, I think over 20 years ago, actually, I came across Napoleon Hill and I became a Napoleon Hill instructor. Now, over the years, I've met some amazing people. I am an author and a speaker. This is my book, Happiness Millionaire, which we will be talking about later. And I've met some incredible people when out on the speaker circuit. So you can possibly see here, this one is the grandchildren of Napoleon Hill. We've got J.B. Hill and Terry Gog. Now, they don't look particularly happy in this image, but we were in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, and it was very, very hot and sticky. So I think we were just tired. In this picture here, you can see I've been given an award from the Napoleon Hill Foundation, and that was in Malaysia. And my daughter here, we used to work together, so she's also had a great influence in the personal development side. And with Tony Robbins here, so you can see I've met a lot of the greats and had some fantastic influence. My book was published in 2017, and the book immediately won an award called the Jamie Loves Award. And this is by a radio BBC Two presenter. So I'm going to take you back. Why did I become a Napoleon Hill instructor, and how Napoleon Hill's work has influenced me over the years? In 1994, my dad very tragically took his own life, and that sent my world in an absolute spin. I was 7 months pregnant with my son Lewis at the time, and after he died, I was just expected to get on with life, as though it was just normal again. Only my life was anything but normal on the inside. On the outside, it looked great. I went on to have 3 children. I was happily married, a lovely home. We had nice cars. We took great holidays. But it was the inside that was causing the problem. And 6 years after Dad dying, I had a breakdown. And I realized that the answer wasn't my dad's answer, but could it possibly be that I needed to take antidepressant pills? So this particular day, I realized that I'd come to the end, and that was what I was going to have to do. So I took my children off to school. And then when I returned home, I decided to pick up the mail that had been delivered. And on the top of the mail was this leaflet, a little booklet actually. And these words hit me: achieve the impossible and break through to an extraordinary and fulfilling life. And I realized then that that was what I wanted. I didn't want antidepressants, and I didn't want to be depressed or miserable. I wanted a joyful fulfilling life. So I opened the booklet, and this was basically a 30-day free trial of Napoleon Hill's work. So I sent for the free trial, and then I realized I needed to study this guy some more. So I went on to Yahoo. This is how long ago it was. Google wasn't even invented at this time. Yahoo was the main search engine. So I went to Yahoo and I started to search Napoleon Hill. And I came across the Napoleon Hill Foundation, and they happened to be doing an online training course. This was before anybody was doing online training courses, and it was very expensive. And we didn't have a great deal of money, but I knew that I had to take this journey, because where I had been was not the place to stay. So I don't know how I found the money, but at the time, I think it was nearly £700. And that was, like I say, 20 years ago. And so I found the money and I joined the course. And through doing that course, my personal desire for my own fulfillment at the time as a career was to become a professional photographer. And I felt I needed a degree. Now, you don't need a degree to be a photographer, but my inner self-worth and self-esteem did need the degree. So I went and I got this degree really to fulfill my own self-worth. And it wasn't about anything else. So I then continued to work as a photographer. But then in 2008, 2009, when we had like the global financial crash, my business started to really suffer because I was doing commercial photography and lots of my clients were going out of business. But as one door closes, another one opens. And the Napoleon Hill Foundation got in touch with me again and asked if I would like to contribute my story to this book, The Path to Riches, which is actually still available on Amazon if you wanted to grab a copy of that. It's all about people's stories of their successes and how they've achieved it. So I was asked to contribute my story in this book, but I was also asked if I would illustrate the book and create images that represented the 13 principles from Napoleon Hill's classic book, Think and Grow Rich. And it was such an honor to do that. So I completed that project, which are illustrated in that book. But these started to change my life because, like I say, my photography business was going downhill, but I created these images as my business cards, and I would go networking and I would offer people the opportunity to choose one of these cards. And that always led to conversations around the messages in the image. And before I know it, people are asking if I would do some training, if I would train them on these images, etc. So that is how Happiness Millionaire was created, really. And I realized at the time, in fact, my business is called Happiness Millionaire because at the time I was going through a divorce and I was on a call to another Napoleon Hill instructor in Canada. And I was complaining. I said, oh, I'm never going to be a millionaire at this rate. And I went, not to worry, at least I'm a happiness millionaire. And then I thought about that and I thought, isn't that the greatest richness of all? And so I immediately went on to, which was now Google, and I started to Google those two words and nobody had put them together. So I claimed them, and that's how I called my business Happiness Millionaire, which is all now built around these images. And Napoleon Hill continues to influence my life and the Happiness Millionaire principles, because in July 2019, I lost my youngest son, Murray. He was just age 22. And I find that when I look back over my time, Napoleon Hill's work has just kind of come in at appropriate moments. And what happened was my sister was regularly saying, have you read your book yet? This was after losing Murray. And I said no, because I didn't actually want to read it, because I wondered if I had actually written, the right thing about happiness. I was in the darkest place. So can this work, to help somebody find happiness again? So I was resisting reading it until several people asked if I had a recording of my book. Did I have an audio book? And I didn't have an audio book. But I'm a great believer that when things come to you in threes, the magic number 3, then you should take action. And this had happened more than 3 times. So I decided I would make an audio book, an audio version of my book. It isn't quite ready yet, but it's getting close. And it was in that reading of the book and the lessons in the book, the exercises in the book, and all the principles and the images that actually I realized I did write a really great book about happiness that can help people, whatever their circumstances, because trust me, I have tested them. So that's how I came to call my business Happiness Millionaire. And if you want a copy of the book, my book is available on my website. In fact, Sam, I believe you're going to put a link into the chat box for you to be able to get this special offer And this is £2 for the ebook. Now, this is normally $9.97 on Amazon, so it's a really fantastic offer. And what I've done for you, because I don't have any of those little pocketbooks that you saw, I don't have any of those available anymore. So what I've done for you over the weekend was, or last week, I should say, I created just a small A4 poster of the images so that you could have the images to the side whilst you read the book, and they can be on your desk and inspire you, and you'll understand that. And I'm going to explain so much more about the images. So let's crack on. Now, so Sam, I hope you've put that link into the chat box so that people can know where to get that from. So now we're going to talk about the power of thinking. You know, Napoleon Hill's book is correct, as in think and grow rich. At Happiness Millionaire, that rich stands for your relationships, your income, your confidence, and your health, not just how much money do you have. And I also believe that's what Napoleon Hill discovered too. But what we're going to do now is look at the power of thinking, because since Napoleon Hill wrote the Think and Grow Rich book, we have come on so much more with what we know and understand about thought. So let's take a look. We have apparently between 60 and 90,000 thoughts per day. And most of them you had yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day before. We all do this. Every human on the planet does this. But the thing is that these thoughts, they create neural pathways. And you can see from this image, like the brain is just this electrical muscle, and it has to connect these electrical nerves, you know, they are pulsating. And so the nerves get connected. And these are called neural pathways. When we create those neural pathways over and over and over and over and over again, then they tend to stick together. And when they stick together, they create the same behaviors. Okay, these are called habits. So our habits are caused through our thoughts, our actions, and our words. And so if we want to change our experience of life, we need to go back some, and we need to learn so much more. So get your pens and paper at the ready. You see, I don't just want to present to you today. I want you to go away with something really valuable that can change your life today. So get your pen and paper and draw this out with me. And imagine you've had a thought. And when you create a thought, you don't get words in your mind. You actually get images. Every thought seems to have an image that is connected with it. It's the original way that we would have communicated before we created languages. And those thoughts will create an emotion, because images are very emotive. When we see something, we get an emotion. So now let's just take a look at this image. Ideally, I wanted to be able to see the chat box so that we could have bits of conversation, but we can do this at the end. So on your paper, just write down the emotion that this image, you know, creates in you. If you write that emotion, and then notice how your body feels with this emotion. You know, for me, it's sad. It's incredibly sad. Oh, I'm going to start crying, because all I want to do is rescue this little boy. And so that emotion, it makes me then want to create an action of going to rescue him. Now, what does this image make you feel like? What are your thoughts around this image? What does it say to you? And now, how does your body feel? Because I already feel lighter. I can feel her energy. And the color is all bright, the bright blues, the yellows. Those are such optimistic visual representations. And with her arms up, you just feel so excited. You feel the lightness. So that now has created that emotion of joy. And we can now take joyful actions. And what happens when we have these actions is it creates an experience. Now it's the experience, remember the thoughts that are 60 to 90,000 thoughts per day, and the most of them are repeated. And that's because our thoughts are doing this all the time. And the experience will then come back into the mind. Remember, we're connecting these neural pathways. The experience comes back and reaffirms our thoughts and images over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. But these start from the moment that you are born. The moment your eyes start to be able to see and assess the world around you. And it has to work like this. It's how we are saved. It's how we are able to live. So imagine having this thought repetition all of the time. But with this knowledge, it's now possible to come back and look at what those patterns have been. And as Sam was saying earlier, we talk about cycles. In my book, I talk about cycles and how cycles break. Well, cycles, when they break, are a great opportunity to make change. We can only make that change when we recognize our thinking. So again, I wanted the chat box to find out how you are thinking, but you can maybe tell me at the end. So do you want to think like this bottom image where you're just all ready to go and you're feeling excited and vibrant? Or like this image at the top, you know, you're exhausted. Things are just not working out how you want them to work out. What can you do? You're exhausted at trying to work out what it is you have to do. But when you're in that state, it is very hard, if not impossible, to be able to see the positive actions you need to take in order to make the change. So how good is your thinking? Now, because I can't have you in the chat box, I want you to use your pen and paper because I do want this conversation with you. How good is your thinking? At Happiness Millionaire, we talk about a poor mindset. And this tends to be the majority of people's mindset. You know, this is like what I call in my book, the 97%. And please write this down. The P stands for a poverty mindset, a mindset that is in fear, doubt, and worry. And let's face it, the whole world is in this state at the moment. We've had over 2 years of a poverty mindset, of being in fear. And so much so, we've begun to fear each other now. And so this is really important for us as a global community to address this new modern poverty mindset. Because what a poverty mindset does is it leads to being overwhelmed. I'm sure that, you know, when you've had times of being in fear and doubt and worry, you start to feel overwhelmed. And that overwhelm, if it goes on too long, will create a sensation of being off balance. Your whole life will be out of balance. And it's at this point where someone's life can break and have a breakdown. Remember when I shared the story with my dad, it was 6 years after my mindset was always triggering in this fear, doubt, and worry, and life became really overwhelming. And then it went completely off balance. Now, fortunately for me, that booklet came into my life and changed my life. And I hope that this presentation has come into your life to help you change your life. So, because if we don't recognize this and take different action, it is only going one way, and there will be regrets. Now, it could be that if we don't get our mindset correct and that we nurture our relationships in a kind and positive, loving way, that we regret when they break. It could be to do with our jobs, to do with our business, but we must generate what we call over here at Happiness Millionaire, a rich mindset, where we consciously focus on our relationships and cultivate new thoughts. And this is why this is a great opportunity, because we can take these sections, which I call the 4 pillars of life, and we can run that little chart that I just shown you. We can run that chart in the area of our relationships. So you can now analyze your thoughts in the area of your relationships. You can do the same with your income. You can do the same with your confidence. You know, when we use better language and we create different experiences, when we recognize that the old version of ourselves, the old experience, no longer serves us, we recognize that, and through understanding the thought process, we can change it. And then ultimately, all of this leads to better health and happiness. Your thoughts impact all those 4 pillars of life. So we're going to start by changing habits. I think you may have seen now that the thought process, because our thoughts keep repeating, all we are really doing is when we have a thought and an image, followed by an emotion, followed by an action that creates that experience, that then feeds back into the brain, we're creating habits, which is great if those habits are serving you. But most of us have really bad habits. So this is an opportunity to take a look at some of the habits that are getting in your way to creating that life of joy, prosperity, and abundance that you really want to aim for and create. So again, get your pen and paper. I was really planning on some dialogue. I'm going to be over my presentation soon. So we'll have dialogue in a moment though. So get your pen and paper and just have a moment and think about the main habit that you do that gets in the way of your business success. Let's just stick with income for now. You can go into the other stuff in your own time, but let's think of your income. So what main habit gets in your way? Is it the way you think? Is it some physical thing that's in your way? You know, just have a think about what it is. And again, what I've done is I've created this. I just did this last night for you, actually. I have created this and put it in with the book. So if you get a copy of the ebook, you will also get the poster with the images on, and you will get this habit chart for you to print off and change as many habits as you like. And here it just says, do one habit at a time. Rome wasn't built in a day. Do one habit at a time. You figure out why you must change this habit, and then give yourself a little reward for achieving the 21 days. This is really super powerful. This alone will change your life. Okay. Now we're going to learn some more about the influence of the brain and why we create those habits, and what is going on in the brain. Whatever we look at, you know, our eyes are the windows to our soul, but they also are the windows to us looking out. And our brain then has to work out everything outside and make sense of it. And that is how it all gets stored in the brain. So if you imagine everything you see coming in through the eye, the information, because your brain is completely black, right? There's nothing but darkness in your brain. So therefore, the brain is just creating neural pathways that create the information in your brain. So does anything exist? What you see comes in through your eye and it goes into this area called the thalamus. Now, the thalamus acts in a way like a signpost. So if it's something that you touch, then the thalamus will be triggered and your brain will be triggered in a different area of your brain. But for now, we're talking about what you see and the experiences and what you see in other people. So how other people's relationships can affect yours and your perception of relationships. So it's everything that you see comes in through the eye, heads to the thalamus. The thalamus recognizes its visual and therefore sends the information to your visual cortex. Everybody has one. And the visual cortex is a 500 million brain cells. It sits about here at the back of the brain, and it stores up a lifetime of images, a lifetime of everything that you've seen, all the influences, the experiences that you've had. And now it can start to trigger thoughts as well. So what we want to do is create a new mindset, because it's really easy to feed this a poor mindset. Just imagine the influences of the world. You know, if you watch the news, all that fear is being sent to your visual cortex. And so the areas we live in, it's easy to create a poor mindset. But we want to take control of our mind. We are in charge. It's our mind. It's not anybody else's. So let's take charge of our mind. And to do that, the way that I can help you to do that is by creating these images and discussing these with you, because these first 3 images, these represent an I can attitude. This is the beginning of the rich mindset, and it overrides a poverty mindset. It's about cultivating an I can attitude. And everything starts with a desire. Desire is the starting point of everything, whether it's a good thing, or whether it's a bad thing, whether it's rich-based or whether it's fear-based. It all starts as a desire. It's a normal thing that the brain is doing. And with this image, the purpose of this is to say, not so much that your desire is something that you have to set it so high you feel it's unattainable, but it is good to set your desire bigger than the life that you currently have. We must be able to see our life bigger than that we have, or we just continually create that we have. You can't move forward. You can't create something with more abundance in it if the life that you currently have is in lack. We have to then visualize and create the desire for something much greater. And when we've created that, because remember, if you go back to that image with the brain, where we're trying to feed information into the brain, then we want to now start to give it new information, because we've got to override the old information. And that old information has been going on for a very long time, since your birth. So this isn't going to happen overnight. In fact, when you decide that you're going to cultivate an I can attitude, this is now your lifelong work. But when I say work, I don't want that to sound like this is a hard thing to do. It's a pleasurable thing to do. You know, aiming for your desire and creating a new vision is wonderful. When you've created that desire and you start to see it in your mind, then we must attach faith and belief to it. Because if we don't attach faith and the belief in our new vision and in the power that we have of cultivating our new thought process and our thought like formulas that we're going to be using, if we don't apply faith, we just get drawn right back to that cycle, that normal cycle of our thought pattern that we've had our whole life. So now it's really important to utilize the power of faith and belief. And we underpin the power of faith and belief by the language that we use, the terms and the phrases that we use. Now, we've always been doing this, even with old thinking. You know, a poverty mindset is still doing this same thing, but we have desires based on lack. We have belief based on lack, and we have the language in our head that supports lack. But we don't want lack. We want a life of abundance, a life of joy and bliss and beauty. And so we now need to change that. So we need to change the desire that we see in our mind that we can constantly feed. We need to change the faith and belief to support that. But most importantly, we've got to change the language that we use. So imagine that these 3 images alone, now there are 13 images altogether, but I don't have the time to go into those today. But I do have an online course that everything is in there. So, but starting with this one that I can help you with today is creating the I can attitude. And this forms the beginning of my book. So keep looking at these images, you know, do the work on what your desire is, what's the vision of your desire, do that work, start to cultivate your belief in seeing that, keep your mind focused on that, and use the supporting language. Supporting language, I can, I am worthy, I have control of my mind, I can do this, whatever it is you're facing. Now, in a moment, we will come on to some Q&A because I have a feeling that you've got lots of questions for me and I really want to help you out. So imagine you're now feeding these new images into your mind. The thalamus knows that they are visual and sends them to the visual cortex. By repeating these images going into the visual cortex, by constantly looking at them, doing this on a daily practice for, well, more than 21 days, though it is a good 21-day habit, continually doing this, your visual cortex will pick these up and it will start to challenge your old sort of visuals of your life. This is called transformation. You will be transforming yourself into that life of abundance. Now, it's uncomfortable to start with, and it isn't easy. You know, the easy thing is to keep going back because that is also what your brain wants. You know, your brain wants to keep seeing what it's always seen because it feels safe, and the brain wants to keep us safe. But what we want to say is, come on, brain, I just want, this is also going to be safe once you know it well. Okay, so just remember that you're actually, this is what you're doing with your brain, which is why I keep going back to those thoughts and analyzing your thoughts is really powerful in this transformation. So I hope that you will give yourself the time to do that and to accomplish that. So as you can see, We've just started with these first 3 images. And like I said, there are 13 images altogether. I'm going to just briefly go through them, but really, get a copy of my book. They're very well explained in the book. And at the end of each chapter, you also get a little recap of the images. So, you can just make markers where those pages are and just keep going back to the recap. You don't need to keep reading the book. I've tried to make it simple. So we start off with these first 3, which is your I can attitude. And then we have specialized knowledge. When you start to have the language going on in your mind, then it's important to seek out knowledge for your desire, because knowledge, it isn't knowledge is power, it's the application of knowledge that is powerful. And when you've gathered the knowledge for what you wish to create, then you can use your imagination. Then you can really get the visuals going. That will allow you to create a plan. Because now you've got something really important to create the plan from, as opposed to just going, well, this is what I want, here's my plan. You actually have some work to do in between all of that. And then you can make a decision. And it's a really qualified decision. You can feel quite confident about this decision in order to be able to persist with it. So you keep going and you keep persisting. And few people do this. There are few people who take the time out to create their own life in their own way. So what you find then is you will find like-minded people, and those people will become your mastermind. It doesn't mean everybody's wanting to create the same thing, but it means everybody is cultivating a similar mindset. And then the sex transmutation principle, that's really about your energy and your enthusiasm and how you show up. And then these last 3 images here, that is now going into the spiritual side of life and that deeper part of our brain, into the subconscious mind, where everything is stored. Our whole life map is stored in the subconscious mind. And we now want to kind of give the subconscious mind some new information. And then we have the brain principle. And this one is recognizing that, as we said earlier, the brain is just this electrical, impulsive muscle, and you will connect with other people's brains. But you want to connect to other people's brains who are living a life of abundance, a happiness millionaire rich life. You want to protect your brain from being connected to people with a poverty mindset. You are cultivating your brain, so it's time to look after it now. And then as you do that and you become more in line with yourself and more attuned with your life and how you want it, then we tap into the 6th sense, the God particle, the universe. We are part of that. We are at one with that. And that is the ultimate power. But to understand that, you first need to take this journey. Okay. I hope you've been scribbling a lot of notes. Okay, we'll just do a quick recap. Like I said, I was hoping to have the chat so that we could take a breather. I feel like I've given you lots of information all in one go. So let's take a breath and let's start the recap. So we've learned about a poor mindset. We've learned that it is the mindset of the majority. It is the mindset of the 97% of people. And it's hard to get away from that sometimes. But we do have the power to create a rich mindset. And we create that rich mindset by awareness, by understanding the brain and how it thinks. And that unless we visualize something that is greater and bigger than that we already have, the brain will continue to give you what you already have. but we are humans, and we have this innate desire to grow and develop. Or many people do, not everybody does, because a poor mindset does not allow you to grow and develop. It keeps you stuck. So we're going to understand the brain and the mind some more by being aware of this diagram and understanding that a thought creates an image, that creates an emotion, that then creates an action, and then the action that you take is what creates your experience. And it's this whole experience that then is fed back to the mind, back to the visual cortex, and it is then stored for future reference. So as we are aiming for a rich life and a life of abundance, it's time to now start to reprogram the mind and cultivate it with these new powerful images that represent this incredible formula that will help you throughout your life, no matter how many times it pivots and turns and what happens to you. These images and this formula will help you every step of the way. Okay, now you can answer these for me and tell me when I open up the mic, okay? Did you, I want to fulfill my promise of, taking your time this morning. So did you, number one, become more aware of the power of your mind? And, just put in, I'll see the chat box in a moment. Answer these questions in the chat box. Say yes if you became aware of the power of your mind. Okay, just fire in the word yes. Did you discover that if your mind is helping you to create the life you want, or is your mind getting in the way? Did I answer that for you? Again, say yes if I did. Say no if I didn't. And then number three, did you learn new techniques to create new habits to reinforce your life of joy? And ultimately, from today's session, that main technique was to reprogram your mind with these images. And did you discover the power of learning and developing your new mind in groups rather than alone? The power of people is enormous. It's so much more than just you on your own. Okay, Sam, if you could put the link again into the chat box for anybody who would like to get a copy of this book as an ebook and have access to the poster and the new habit charts. If you could put the link in there, Sam, that would be great. Now, the other thing, if you decide you would like a copy of my book, I've also put an amazing offer together for training. So if you've got anything from today's training, then the entire training will blow your mind. And Sam can tell you about that because he's done the training. So this will just totally blow your mind. But what I've also done, normally this online training program would cost £1,297 on my website. But I'm also going to put in these bonuses. I have another program called the Rich Life Foundation course, which is £397, but I'm adding that as a bonus today. And you can have that for free. So I'm also going to be starting live monthly calls. Now, this is brand new for me, so I'm really excited about doing this. And these monthly calls are in line with my training. But with this package for today, you'll get 3 months of that for free. Now, after speaking with Sam about, because you're in Africa and understanding how the financial system works in Africa, then I've put this together, a price of £147, which is absolute madness for everything that you get. But I've divided that up into 3 payments so that you don't have problems with payment and things like that. We can talk about that when we open the mic. So that is then over 3 months. I hope that you feel that that is going to serve you and help you to progress with your life of abundance.